Hey, what's up, pro wrestling fans? Welcome to the Nation's Corner. I am Front Row, joined this week, as always, by Debhausen, the great and powerful, and John in South Jersey. What's up, guys?
What's up?
Hello.
Where's all our peoples? Where's all
I don't know. I see him in the chat. I see him. I see John Bay. Welcome. Billy Doyle. Welcome.
Yes.
Neil, of course, is in there. Seth, who's really I won't break kayfabe. Hello, Seth, out there, so far away, checking in with us. But
out from parts unknown.
yes.
Yeah.
Say, yeah, I see Trenda's in the chat as well. What's up, Trenda?
Hey, Tran.
Yep, a bunch of people. Well, it's been an eventful week, as freaking always. There's like 8 million things to talk about.
A couple.
Jeez, where do we start?
Train keeps rolling.
A lot of big stuff happened in AEW. We'll get to that in a minute. I think we should talk about the draft. It's sort of the big thing going on right now. If y'all listen to Busted Open this morning, Matt Camp and Denise did a good show. I felt like it was a little negative, pretty negative. I didn't think the show was bad. I thought that it was a fun show with some really cool moments. But I want to break something down to get your opinion, because going back over the numbers, there were 16 available talents for the draft on SmackDown, and an additional 7 supplemental on social media. Of those 23 people, 3 were NXT call-ups and only 5 switched brands.
Right.
So to me, is that a boring draft, or is that setting up for a Wild Monday?
Both.
The second half of the draft.
Both.
I wouldn't say boring at all. I really enjoyed SmackDown last night. I'm not really one of those people like who really even pays attention that much to who's on what show. Like even Tony asked me to keep him updated on what was happening on SmackDown, and he asked me if anybody switched shows yet at that time. It was like halfway through the show, and I was like, honestly, I don't.
What besides
know.
MJF being
honestly,
drafted?
I don't know where. I have a terrible memory and don't know where people were before.
Oh, you told him about MJF being drafted to SmackDown. Right?
hang on, John. We have a special guest in the chat.
Oh, look! Oh God! Look who finally decided to see your dad. What's up, kiddo?
What's up, Brooke? Thanks for joining.
Yeah. So yeah, I enjoyed SmackDown. Like, the draft is what it is. We'll see. I'm thinking, setting up something for Monday. Like, there might be a couple big surprises then on Monday, and they're just saving it for then. But it just didn't. It is what it is. I enjoy the ride.
I say both, and because traditionally the draft has been a way to kind of shake things up, bounce rosters around, bounce people around rosters. Maybe someone on one show that's getting a little stale or needs a reboot or a refresh or something. But however, you have on both shows now a lot of really good, engaging, and captivating storylines. So I don't see the point in, like, to have the Bloodline be drafted to Raw, to me, doesn't make any sense, because most of their storyline and stuff right now has been and is centered on SmackDown. Not saying that they couldn't, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, because, like I said, you have a lot of different stories right now that really you kind of need the people in place where they're at. And does it really matter who goes where? To your point, Deb, I don't think so. I do like what seems to be a little bit more of inclusion this time around, especially with NXT. And then instead of just them saying, "Oh, so and so got called up," now they're getting in on some of that as well. They had Jackie Redmond live down at the Performance Center with all the NXT roster and stuff, and we saw Kiana James and her reaction to getting called up and everything. Whether she had known or whatever, she played it real well for the camera. It might have been genuine, it might have been okay, but so I don't, and I know it's seemingly the wonderful IWC is very, opinionated on when it comes to the draft, and there's no need. But
when aren't they opinionated?
That's the other. And honestly, it's not bad. It might be something that gives somebody a new start. Who knows? This may be the time. The one time out of the 10 other dozen times they tried before, Ricochet finally hits. Why not? Why not?
Yeah, that seems unlikely. But it's interesting to me because I'm a big fan of the draft having like individual people, although the tag teams make sense. I wouldn't use the draft as an opportunity to break up a tag team randomly. So they have Bloodline with Solo and Tama Tonga listed as a tag team with Paul as their manager or advocate or whatever. So that makes sense to me. And I really like the fact that they made it clear that Roman had withdrawn from the draft because he was going to be away for some time.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that from a storyline perspective. He's a guy who's taking time off for his family, his health, whatever it is. In storyline, he got beat. He's going to go train. He's going to come back, whatever. It's fine. And it makes sense not to have him involved in the draft unless he's going to be on TV. So I'm cool with that. But I'm going to be interested to see what happens to Jimmy. And we saw what happened with Jay. So Jay's been drafted, which is cool. So what did you guys think about taking Bianca and Jade and sort of basically giving them their own shows? Like, because they're very similar in the way that they appear physically, like they're big strong people. They have a similar physical presence.
Right. I had a hope that they would stay on the same shows so they could be like, a tag team together. But if they're on different shows, then I don't know. It's complicated because then we don't get to see them together every week. So maybe they're just kind of doing their own thing and then gonna come back together at some point later on down the road. I'll just be interested to see how they do it because we've already gotten used to seeing the two of them together.
Yeah.
So I got one quick point on it before you move on, front row. I mean, eventually this was bound to happen. I didn't think it was going to be right away. We have literally gone from the buildup of Jade, the premiere of Jade, the little bit of follow-up with Jade to her and Bianca to them now separately. It seems very quick. So either they have a lot of confidence in Jade's ability to be on her own, or they're like, well, if we're going to throw her in the deep end, let's throw her in the deep end and put her basically on her own show.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I think people have an expectation that Jade has a certain level of expertise based on only what they've seen in the past and what they've seen recently, which she's been very, very protected in the way that she's been in tag matches.
Right.
An athlete of her caliber training 6 days a week for the last 7-8 months, she probably got a little better.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So maybe we just haven't seen what she's capable of yet.
And honestly, one other thing to ponder for the crowd, for the group, for those in attendance. Raw right now on the female side is kind of lacking in star power. You have Ripley, you have Rhea out. So there's your, yes, there and Becky with the championship belt is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to, card subjects to change. But outside of that, who else really on Raw? Now, not saying that Jade is just going to walk in and become the Rhea type star of Raw, but right now you got a fairly big pool of no one really stepping up, but need something at least to keep eyes or get eyes on Monday nights.
It could be a place for Shayna or Zoe to step up, but you want to continue to develop them and not feed them to Jade. So yeah,
Sure.
Could that be a Liv Morgan thing? Like maybe she ends up over there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
So maybe at best.
At best. So we saw 3 NXT call-ups, 2 on SmackDown and 1 on social media. We saw Baron Corbin on social media, Kiana James and Carmelo Hayes on SmackDown. I was hoping for more NXT interaction. It seemed weird that they went through all that trouble to put Jackie and everybody in the Performance Center for one call-up.
Yeah,
Right.
Carmella was there.
Yeah. I'm excited to see them up there. Kiana to me was a bit of a surprise. Out of and not that she doesn't deserve it or hasn't deserved it, and it was weird. And you're right, it should have been all that kind of build up for it should have been a little bigger than what it was for her. And for those who don't think she's ready, just go back, watch old episodes of NXT and the feud that she had with my girl, Yeehaw Bitches, Fallon Henley, and you'll understand why that young lady is now on Raw.
Yeah.
And hopefully Fallon follows.
She is, I think, more imposing than you realize. Mm-hmm. She's a very muscular, very strong presence in the ring, and she can go, man.
Yeah.
She's one of those people that progressed very, very quickly. Yeah. So I think it's a good call up. So yeah, the only brand change is obviously Braun Breaker went from SmackDown to Raw. Sheamus just came back, so it didn't really matter. He went from SmackDown to Raw. Andrade also was relatively newly returned to the company, so he wasn't really established on Raw anyway. He's over on SmackDown. Yeah. And then Alba Fire and Isla Dawn really haven't done anything yet. So that brand switch didn't really affect me at all.
If anything, they're just changing catering locations. And I don't mean to sound that mean against them because they're both very talented, but what real is real? When was the last time you've seen either one of them either on TV or anything? So
one real quick point about the draft is, there's always a lot of talk about how many people switched and like, oh, there's not that many changes. Well, really, I think the best way to mix it up is to only switch about the half the roster, because if everybody switches, then it's just a complete flip-flop. Then there's no change in the mixture of the talent and who could go against who. Switch about half the people stay where they are, and that really does a best job of mixing things up.
I think people are looking at it the wrong way too, because really what happened is you have a blank slate. You have two teams drafting, and some people are like, well, this person performed for us, we want to keep them, so we're going to use them as a pick. But really what they've done is they've put everybody in a pool. Some people end up going back to the same brand, but you're starting off the map. You're starting off the draft with even, right?
True.
Just the way it looks now is it looks like most of the people didn't make any changes, but a couple of things I would have liked to have seen more interaction from the GMs. Some sort of conversation leading up to the draft about maybe behind the scenes trying to work some stuff out. They're both very, very good at social media. I would love to see some trades over the weekend on social media, something to keep people engaged in the draft. Very sports-like.
That could be interesting. Yeah.
I do like the idea of the way they had their quote-unquote war room set up this time than in years past. No stupid Cletus robots and people you don't know. We saw on both sides, and I'm sure we'll touch on that in a moment, but you saw actual wrestling people, actual WWE people in there that you knew and recognized and participating, quote-unquote, in the war rooms with the GMs.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple questions. There's a huge list of people that are still undrafted. I'm looking at this now. It's a massive list.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many are on here, but it's more than were drafted on the weekend. Of course, Raw's longer. It's 3-hour show, so there's going to be more picks anyway. Shout out to Bully Ray. It was awesome seeing him. When the first war room shot happened, our friend Chad said, "Hey, I think that's Bully," and we zoomed in and we're like, "Yeah, that's Bully." And then, of course, you saw him in the other shots. Seeing him and Devon do a round picks was really, really cool.
Yes.
That was awesome. And he did call into Busted Open during the third hour.
Today.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, he talked about it and, talked about how fun it was and seeing everybody. And he talked a little bit about kind of the backstage atmosphere that's there right now. So it was good.
And thank you, Cincinnati, for completely understanding the assignment with the ECW, and we want to.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It was cool. I'm like, hey, didn't we just see him a couple of weeks ago in Philly? That's that guy.
I drank alcohol, that man.
Yep.
We did. Well, you did. I was driving. I watched you drink alcohol with him,
Yes.
but it is sort of a weird thing. It is a funny thing, though, when you go to these events and you see people and you interact with them, and then they're on WrestleMania a couple days later, or then they're on Raw and SmackDown, and, you know.
So,
even even in the wrestling community, we see people at the independent circuit who end up as either extras or just in-ring talent or whatever on a random Raw or SmackDown or AEW or whatever. It's always kind of cool.
Yeah, we've gotten into the habit of, WWE or AEW whenever there's, a pack of security guys that come in or whatever. We're like, oh, do I know any of them?
Wait, what town are they in?
The answer is usually yes.
Yes, it's usually somebody.
Someone in the group, someone in the crew knows somebody in the security guard. Yeah. We've had even Stevens have been on here and they were extras and Steven Azure, I think, that got beat up by Brock Lesnar. And so there's those fun moments. I didn't want to do that. I wouldn't do it, but it's cool.
No.
Yeah, so Monday's going to be exciting. It's a much bigger list of people that they're fighting over. A couple of things, and I totally agree with the War Room setup was actual sports-like. I did like the fact that they had the veterans in there that were coaching, like you say, sort of giving feedback. Okay, make sure you get this person. And, we saw a lot of that. We saw Bully with the glasses on talking to people and we saw Teddy Long. Everybody looked like they were real serious, which I thought was perfect.
Yeah.
Everybody had suits on. They weren't dressed up like wrestlers. It was like, no, we're professional veterans here giving our advice. I thought it was cool.
That part was well done,
I really liked Triple H coming out. And when Cody tried to leave and he pulled him aside, originally, obviously, we know that was kind of the way it was going to go with Carmelo. But in the moment, Cody really sold it like, what am I? I'm going back here. Triple H.
No, come here. But
it was a fun moment.
Yeah, it was. Eventually it wound up leading to a match. But up until that point, really, you just thought Cody was out there to sign the contract with AJ, and that was about it. So that was a nice little way to give the fans a little something more. And then eventually they found out that their main event that night was Cody and Carmelo.
Yeah.
Which is great. And it was a great match, and I'm glad it wasn't a title match. It would not have made sense.
No.
Not
a week before.
That would have been weird. Yeah. Like I mentioned on Zoom last night, I was like, why? If it was for the title, that'd be weird because we just made a whole spectacle about the segment with the contract signing for AJ, and then Mello just comes out and says, "I challenge you."
Yeah. Well, I want your belt tonight. Yeah. Whoa, wait. You just got here. That's not how this works.
Right.
Slow your roll.
Easy.
But it was a great match. It put Mello on a big spotlight for sure.
Yeah, to main event the biggest viewer, the most viewed TV show on a wrestling TV show on TV right now, SmackDown is the flagship at 2.5 to 3 million viewers. To main event that show is a big deal, and he didn't have any problem. He was great, man. Kudos to him.
Match. Yeah, he definitely Cody went over, but he absolutely got over, especially with the SmackDown fans that may or may not have known who he was.
Well, they should. He's been on SmackDown before.
But you're right. But that still doesn't matter. Look at our own Discord. Anyway, I digress. I digress. We're not going there.
He's been on several times before. Everybody should know who he is at this point, which is why it was a little weird that he get drafted. I'm like, yeah, but you've already been. I get it. It's officially moving up, but whatever.
Now it's stamped official.
I love the interaction between NXT and the main roster in the recent months, just with Roxanne Perez and when Ilya was the champion and all that stuff. And so speaking of champions, do you think how did you guys feel when Carmelo and Cody were having an interaction and everybody was chanting for Trick? Whoop that Trick.
I think they're trying to tell everybody something, tell WWE something anyway. And there's absolutely no doubt that at some point we're going to see Trick and Mello face off again on the main roster. And that's just inevitable.
Yeah.
But again, little patience, people. Slow down. Trick finally just got his shot and his chance to carry the torch as the NXT champion. Let him play out and continue doing what he's doing. They're, him and Mello are both young men. They got plenty of time to get to them getting back together and getting in the ring, either as Trick Mello Gang again or against each other. Plenty of time. Right now, just let things be the way they are and let Trick have his run as champion.
Yeah, and David's right in the chat. The crowd did say, he did say to the crowd, "I already did."
Yeah,
it was a funny.
And that's no thing, obviously, and it's things like that I'm glad, and even though it's all basically in the same company, they don't shy away from things like that because fans, fans do know, fans, are aware that this isn't someone that was plucked from obscurity and now they're up on the main roster. They're on SmackDown,
especially now.
Yeah, and it's, and I think that's a great thing. I think this I hope the interaction, and seeing different names and people showing up on NXT and other people, even if they're just one-offs, NXT people coming up to Raw or SmackDown for a week or two or whatever. I think it's it does nothing but improves the product, because how many times have we seen, especially people from NXT, go up to the main roster and they try to do the same character or gimmick that they've used at NXT, and it absolutely falls flat and gets nothing from the main roster audience. And it's not, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the performer. It's just for whatever reason, what works in NXT sometimes doesn't work in the main roster, and vice versa. So if they keep that up, at least now, instead of these kids getting brought up and said, "Okay, there you go jump in the deep end." But
okay,
now
so I have a question. So Deb, behind the curtains, pull the curtain back. Deb runs all of our social media, most of our social media. RA is kind enough to do the Facebook. Okay, and here's what's interesting to me. SmackDown has about 2.5 million to 3 million viewers. NXT has about 600,000, so roughly a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Every person in that arena, this wasn't Philly, this wasn't Chicago, this wasn't New York, this was Ohio, right? They all knew Trick Williams. They all knew instantly who Carmella was, who Trick was, who the NXT call-ups were. This point, the reason I asked you, Deb, the consumption of wrestling is way beyond just what the metrics for the numbers are, right? Like it's YouTube, it's social media, it's every form. And a lot of those clips that you make for us get a lot more viewers that wouldn't necessarily show up in just our little metrics. So are you surprised to see a crowd that size know everything about NXT?
No, not at all. Not at all. I famously don't watch NXT.
Okay, Nick.
When it was on Wednesdays, I was watching AEW, and it's like impossible for me to watch two things at once. And if I don't see it live, I'm never going to catch up on it. So I just didn't watch NXT then. When I moved to Tuesdays is just my non-wrestling night. It's like the one night that we do not watch wrestling, the only night we do not watch wrestling. So we catch up on other stuff. So yeah, I famously don't watch NXT, but I am generally aware of who all the talent is. There are some that I'm not aware of, but the big stars I know, and I'm generally aware of the main storylines there. I see the clips on social media. So yeah, I'm not surprised at all that the crowd knew who he was. I'm not surprised at all that there's a much larger audience than that 600K. yes, the YouTube TV and other metrics are still technically counted in the Nielsen. YouTube TV is a participant of Nielsen, but I think it's pretty obvious at this point that like the rating says 600K. That doesn't mean only 600K actually see that.
No.
Right.
I mean, how many times have we seen, 1.5 million people watch Raw, but this clip does 20 million views.
Right.
More people are seeing it.
Sure.
Right.
It's not the same thing. So the other thing about NXT that I think is interesting is WWE is very, very good at video packages. So when they have pay-per-views, they have premium live events, especially for NXT, which is on, WWE's premium live events are on Peacock. So you're not spending $50 a pay-per-view, you're paying $5 or $8 or whatever it is, and you get everything. I think a lot of people are consuming the PLEs and not the weekly TV, and they do such a good job of bringing you up to speed with the characters and the storylines that you're like, oh, I know who these people are. I watched last week.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or at least if you're just tuning in for that particular PLE, by the time that match comes around, they've done a good job within the PLE to explain how, the why is this match and why is this match important.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brooke agrees.
They told you she's smart.
She's a smart.
Oh God. Anywho.
But I'm excited. I'm excited for all that stuff that's going on. I'm excited for the people that are coming up through NXT because we're seeing some of the main roster people working there. Natty's coaching down there regularly.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like forced like it was in the past. It feels like just the right balance of some seasoned professionals with some newer talent, and then they're getting, I think, and vice versa. I think Baron Corbin's time in NXT gave him a complete refresh.
Sure.
Yes. And I think one of the biggest difference is that the people running the shows are on the same page now. We heard in Trevor Lee, Cameron Grimes' interview on Busted Open this week, he mentioned that there was kind of a little bit of a power struggle between Triple H and Vince when Vince was still there. And now that Triple H is running the main shows and Shawn Michaels is running NXT, they are on the same page. They know what they're doing. They have a plan. There's no power struggle. There's no conflict. And it's very obvious. It very well comes across on the screen.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
something else I wanted to ask you guys, and we've talked about this over the last few months, especially since Kevin Dunn left and I think Lee Fitting took over. The production element changes, the way the show's shot, the way it's produced. It's just been so creative, so interesting. Those continuous shots, which, by the way, to do like a 5-minute continuous shot with no breaks on live TV, damn, like that is insane. And it was live TV because they went right out to the ring.
Yes, right, yeah. And we even saw it creep into NXT last week or this past week with the Carmelo Dragunov match. They went, full shot of Trick Williams Dragunov match. They went full, from Trick Williams from the back all the way out, and you hear him coming up through Gorilla, and the crowd, the music hits, and they start chanting and everything, and he walked out with one continuous shot. It's fantastic. It's so good how they do it.
It's funny because the other night we were talking to Andre about like the background stuff, like stuff that's going on in the background, and then what we saw, we said we were fantasy booking these shots. Like, I want to see a fight going on in the back and like all this stuff happening. And it did. It happened last night on SmackDown.
It did.
Where the women are facing off and KO and
KO with the bloodline, and it just further proves that they listen.
They even listen on our Zooms.
Damn right they do.
I hope not.
I really don't either. Yeah. Well, that'd be the least of our worries.
That's probably true.
God. Yeah. And one thing I really enjoyed, so it was on Monday with the long continuous shot with Becky. So we saw Becky kind of stop mid walk and talk and stop and say to Maxine, this is your first your first challenge for the title, right? She said, yeah. And she said, go out there and show them why it won't be your last.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. Just a little moment where one of the veterans, Becky, is saying to a newer girl, you know, hey, you show them what you got.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with some of the online backlash Maxine has received, I really liked that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the layered part of it that's so good, because just on the surface, it's a veteran, cheering on a younger talent. But if you know what happened with all the stuff with her and social media, and even at the live events, the overwhelming support that she's gotten, not only from WWE people, but from people across the industry, veterans all over the industry were supporting her. So if you know that on-screen moment on a major TV show, I thought was really cool.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Anything else WWE before we move on? And there's a ton of stuff, right? I mean, good Lord.
We could spend the rest of the time just going through Raw and SmackDown, but I think that's the major stuff, the major points. It still makes, just to kind of wrap it all up in a bow, yet again, Monday night is must watch, if for nothing else, to see, you like you mentioned, Front Row, there's a huge talent pool still available. That, I mean, you can look at some names and say, yeah, this person's still going to be here, this person's still going to be there and stuff. But again, there is that sense of anticipation, a sense of, is something going to happen? Is there going to be a big move or a big change or something? So yet again, 8 o'clock on USA Monday night, we all know where our TVs are going to be.
Yep. 100%. So I famously don't watch all that much AEW.
Nick Nemeth is going to be throwing cease and desist orders around here, and it's going to be me hosting this show. So, because they're all going to get yourselves in trouble. You'll all be looking to retain legal representation. But anyway, continue. Go ahead.
So, and I've been, I guess, critical of AEW just because in the last year and a half, they've gotten away from really good storytelling. I felt like it was really good in the beginning. They sort of fell off. There was a lot of discontinued, like, start stops. It was hard for me to get invested. I could watch the matches and go, that was a fun show, but I didn't get into it.
Right.
Having said all that, in recent months, they're starting to tell stories. The pay-per-view, the Dynasty pay-per-view was fantastic. The Dynamite this week was one of the best. Audio issues aside, all right, but that's not the talent's fault, and it's certainly not creative's fault. That's a technology issue.
Yeah.
Which, whatever. The second half of Dynamite was one of the best hours of TV I've seen from AEW in a long time. The storylines are cohesive. The surprises were massive. Tony taking that bump, like, all of it to me really was a big step forward. And I know you guys watch more of it than I do, so you should do more of the talking. But as someone who only watches it casually, I was like, holy shit, like, this is big. They're doing some really good stuff here. And then completely opposite of what I would have picked for Jack Perry's return. It was perfect. It was great. So let's start there. We can talk about some other stuff, but what were you guys thinking when that whole segment happened?
So that whole segment, I was kind of blown away. I did not expect that at all. I think it was something that nobody expected to go down the way it went down. And I just thought it was different. It was interesting. It was something we've really never seen from AEW before. I think they're introducing Jack Perry back into the fold in a way that we really didn't expect. There's a lot of chatter of, well, is he going to be a heel? Is he going to be a face? And I think it's just different depending on who you ask. I think the audience and fans in general aren't on board with one way or the other. Some people will cheer for him. Some people will boo him. It's just everybody's different opinions. But I think that the way they're doing it is kind of leaning into that a little bit. Some people are still fans of the Young Bucks, and some people hate their guts. Right. So it's playing into both sides a little bit, and I think it's really well done because it's got everybody talking clearly.
True.
Yeah. So, John, I want to get your opinion on something, but I don't want to miss this. I don't understand how anybody online can think that Jack Perry's not a heel. He sided with the heels. He gave a TK driver. They gave a TK driver to Tony Khan, who is by all accounts a super nice guy. He's not Vince McMahon being the evil boss. Like, he's a very nice human being and a small man. He's a tiny man.
He's real small.
That entire segment screams heel to me. I don't see any good guy in any of that.
I completely agree, but there are some, super diehards out there who will just are just cheering for him because I don't know, because they're elite fans.
Yeah. Just real quick, Neil, it was the Meltzer driver. It's now the TK driver.
Yes.
Watch the product.
They changed the name.
I'm just kidding.
Everything counts.
Neil gets up at like 2 a.m. He doesn't get a chance to watch as much anymore. Shout out to Neil.
He doesn't even get up for our Zooms anymore. So.
Oh yeah.
Kayfabe, brother.
I know. But to piggyback on both you and Debs, overall the segment was fantastic. I thought it was great, and yes, we have seen these type of heel turn type things happen in wrestling before, but you're right, never in AEW, and never would I have thought that it would end up with Tony Khan taking physicality. Now, on one hand, you can look at it as, oh, well, that's by design because, of course, Tony Khan they showed the footage and Tony was afraid for his life. Well, now he's really afraid for his life. He took a TK driver. Thank you. And I guess that's valid to an extent, because 2 weeks ago we saw a video where Tony Khan basically what was the end of CM Punk in AEW, and the fact that Tony Khan made a statement afterwards saying, "I was afraid for my life," but yet here he is taking. So, are they leaning into it? Absolutely. On the other hand, the one thing that absolutely sold me on the whole subject was about 5 seconds at the very end of it. You see Saeed Khan, Tony Khan's father, come out to the ring and, to come and check on his son. Like, what the fuck did these guys just do to my son? And that sold it. That really sold it. His dad.
We're like, oh, shit.
You expect wrestlers, you expect referees, and nothing for nothing, AEW. Bad for talent. A little quicker. Boss is up in the air. A little quicker to the ring to intervene. But I digress.
There could have been some hustle. I agree.
Yeah. However, if you go back, and this is just me because I like him, Carly Bravo, Bad News and Tattoos. If you go back and look at some of the still shots, dude was selling his ass off. Like when Shad Khan came up beside him, he was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, he understood the assignment. And again, that it's little things like that and everything that really sold the whole segment. I agree with you, front row. There's in no way can you call Jack Perry a babyface or anything right now, just as much as you can't call the Young Bucks babyface right now. And in true heel style, and we have talked about this repeatedly, especially when we still had Cody in AEW. The heel always thinks he's the hero of his story. He is the main character and the hero, and that's exactly what. And the general consensus is, the Young Bucks have always been killing the business. When they first started with the Elite and back in their Bullet Club days and everything, they were killing the business. We were changing it. They don't do anything right. They do 700 super kicks a match, and they're all this. Now they've finally come full circle and matured and are absolutely 100% leaning into that. And there's subtle ways showing you and telling you, yes, we have known all along that we are D-bags. And guess what? Now you're going to get every bit 100% of it. And we're going to run this out until, either you're going to hate it so much you love it, or you're simply going to hate it. But either way, we don't care. Why? Because you're going to tune in and watch it.
Yeah, and another thing too is the smile. When Jack Perry hugged Tony and he turned to the camera, that is not the smile of a person who's about to do good things.
No,
that is the smile of a person about to do bad things.
That's my new favorite GIF.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you knew shit was going down. Like you knew bad things were about to happen. That's not a good guy doing those things. But I thought the whole segment was great. There's other stories going on that are really good. I like the way that they're starting to give women more time. There were more women's segments this week. We're seeing Tony Storm, Timeless Tony Storm, just killing. It's still my favorite thing in AEW. She's incredible. On the press conference after Dynasty, she was just unbelievable. Like,
yeah. Oh, and by the way, the new way that I summon people will be bosom.
Yeah, it was great. They finally gave Thunder a mic. She's been cutting promos. There's a story there, and I guess there's a match tonight with Deonna Purrazzo. Who knew that she could talk? Oh wait, everybody except for the people on TV.
Right.
So that's been a big step forward, and they've been doing more stuff backstage. So I feel like they're starting to take steps in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not crazy about the concept of Mercedes Moné chasing for the TBS title, only because she's the highest paid person in the company and probably should be doing something a little bit bigger, and she's an incredible star.
Yeah.
But it's also a crowded field at the top. There might storyline where they might not be ready to rotate her into that spot yet. So
yeah, and that's what I was thinking, that it's just, with what's currently happening on the main event picture right now, they might just be kind of wanting to settle that storyline before introducing Mercedes into the fold.
Well, we have seen it, and just to stay on the women's division for a second, we have seen this over and over again with AEW. Somebody new comes in. Oh, okay. And a week later, now they're challenging for the title. They've been here for a cup of coffee. How about, give them a match or two or something? Up to and including most recently, Deonna Purrazzo. Deonna premiered in January, and 3 weeks later, she is having a title match. For what? Now, granted, there was, and credit AEW, they did tie this there because there was a story, old history between her and Tony Storm. But still, it's like, if you're just looking like, all right, we brought this person in, and you may or may not know who Deonna Purrazzo is or isn't. But to give her right away in the title match now, and then what happens? Well, Deonna loses, obviously. But now you have no.
Then it's a now what?
Yeah, it's okay. We put her to the back. Can she or will she work her way back up? I'm sure at some point. But again, you've already burnt the bridge before you had a chance to cross it. So I think what I do think is smart with Mercedes is, you would think, yes, AEW is automatically going to hotshot her and get her into the main title picture with Tony Storm or whoever the women's champion is as quick as possible, so they can get the belt on her, so she can be, quote unquote, the face of the promotion, blah, blah, blah. I'm not mad at her going after a lesser title or the TV, or even for the TBS title. It gives Willow, who is the champ right now, deservedly so, it gives her a little bit bigger of a platform and a mark. Again, deservedly so. And again, Caprice Coleman, I know you watch, I know you listen. If you and Riccaboni are not rapping Willow every time she comes to the ring, we're gonna have heat. So listen to us. The last time I'm gonna tell it to you is, don't make me come to the Lehigh Valley, Riccaboni. I know whereabouts you live. Listen to me.
The vicinity.
Yes.
The vicinity of where I'm sitting right now, actually.
And Deb, you are my alibi. So if anybody calls, we went to Whiz Kids.
Sizzler?
Yeah. But so I don't, like I said, I'm not mad at it. There is a bit of history and story with Willow and Mercedes. Again, fans may or may not be aware of. but and I don't, like I said, it's not a typical AEW. So while I kind of have a feeling how it's going to end up, I'm still interested to see and how they get there.
So they did do a good job of explaining that, not only with the promos back and forth with Willow and Mercedes, but also in the video package. I think they connected the dots pretty clearly.
Yeah, everybody should be up to speed on why Mercedes in particular, out of all the women, Tony Storm included, why she is focused on Mercedes or on Willow. They've done a good job of explaining and getting everybody up to speed on that.
Yeah. And I'm perfectly okay with slower build on this one.
So a couple of things. I was not crazy about that scramble match. The match was fine, but like the commentary was confused. The people at home are confused. Some people are calling it a gauntlet match. It wasn't a gauntlet match.
It was great. The people involved in the match, as usual, and that's usually our same thing with AEW. The bell to bell in ring stuff is fantastic. You had very good people in there that worked very hard, but you're absolutely right, front row. I was a little confused on exactly what they meant and how this match was set up. I took it as some sort of a Royal Rumble style where what was shorter times, like instead of every 3, it was every minute someone came in. And but what they didn't really quite explain, and this is, I think, where the confusion of it, is it a gauntlet match or anything? It was a one fall match. Whoever got the first pin was the winner. And I don't think they explained it very well. They kind of almost, it seemed like commentary got caught up in the action themselves of like, who came in next, who's doing this and that. And, the match itself, I thought was fine. But if they did a little better explaining it, it probably would have came off a lot better to the fans.
I think Taz even said, like, how many more people are coming out? Like,
right. Yeah,
you don't know?
Well, if you don't know, we're not going to know, Taz.
Yeah. I think they could have, like, before Royal Rumble or like War Games or any crazy stipulation match like that, there's usually like a graphic that comes on the TV laying out the outline of the rules and how it's going to go.
Right.
And I feel like I'm trying to go back and look right now on their social media. I feel like it was kind of a last minute announcement of the type of match that it was. And yeah, I don't really think they laid out the rules or anything. So yeah, that did create a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
And just real quick, front row, the end result obviously is what everybody wanted. Now Will Ospreay has a Continental Championship title shot against Roderick Strong. I think at the next pay-per-view, which is All In, maybe somebody.
Double or Nothing's in May.
Double or Nothing. Thank you. In May.
Yeah,
I believe that is the next pay-per-view.
Neil says they should let Switchblade and Billy go a little longer. Yeah, I mean, I think Will Ospreay was a great signing and has only proven to be worth whatever they're paying him and a lot more.
Sure.
His promos, his character work, the stuff at the press conference, like obviously his in-ring. I think he's one of the best all-around performers on the planet right now. He was already one of the greatest wrestlers on the planet, but his like ability to communicate with the audience now is next level. And maybe that's just because I didn't see all of his stuff in Japan, but like communicating to an American audience and the way that they're presenting him and letting him run with stuff, he's fantastic. One of my favorite parts of the show.
Yeah. All right. Before if we're going to move on or whatever, I do have one quick FU, and it is, and I'll say this, and this is a complete shoot. You guys didn't know I was going to say this, but anyway, FU Tony Khan. You deserve to get TK Driver for what you did to the World Six-Man Championships in Ring of Honor. What in the mother effing fuck are you doing? You have just took 17 fucking years of World Six-Man Championships in Ring of Honor and just all over them. You effing a-hole. How dare you, sir? You are such a fan of wrestling and such a fan and was so excited. I bought Ring of Honor. I bought Ring of Honor. Yeah. What have you done with it? You've turned it into a mockery of what it was. And people like me who were there in 2000 and are still here today paying now you their $10 a month for Honor Club, we effing deserve better. Will you get your head? Maybe now that you're wearing a neck brace 24/7, you will have an opportunity to pop your head firmly out of your ass and figure out what the hell you're doing with Ring of Honor, because this isn't it. For God's sakes, what are you doing? You invented your own titles. The trios titles would not effing exist without the Ring of Honor World Six-Man titles. Who's held the Six-Man titles? All right. How about Bubba Ray Dudley and the Briscoe brothers? How about Shane Taylor Promotions? How about the Righteous? How about your current Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions? Oh, with another guy. Oh, what's his name? That's right. Adam Cole, baby. We're Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team Champions at the Kingdom. Are you that dumb? Have the mind-altering drug done that much to that particular part of your brain? Pop your head out of your ass and get it right. I'm really getting sick and tired of it. Okay, thank you, Randall.
Fair enough. I feel like that entire thing is going to make it onto his social media, like what The Rock did with Dave Greco. So yeah, we'll see. Hope for the best.
It'll be on our social media.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there we go. We'll contact our social media team right after the show.
Handle it, Deb. I have. You get to clean up the wreckage.
I have two Tony Khan points that I want to make. One good and one bad. I will first give him his flowers for absolutely selling that wearing a neck brace to the NFL draft. It didn't have to be a wheelchair. It didn't have to be anything over the top, but the neck brace is all we needed to see to say this guy's taking it seriously. Mm-hmm. He's selling, and in a place where he's part of the organization. He's not in the media. Like, he actually is part of the NFL team, and he has a neck brace selling an injury from a wrestling show. It's fantastic.
And in a very completely different viewership and exposure than just like if he showed up on, say, Rampage tonight or somewhere in the neck brace, everybody, oh, okay, yeah. Dude, this was the NFL draft. Like the NFL draft him, and they just panic. Right, here he is wearing a neck brace. And how many people were like, wait a minute, that's the owner of the Panthers. Why is he wearing a neck brace?
Jaguars.
So Jaguars. Why is he wearing a neck brace? So you immediately now, and you're absolutely right, front row. Bravo to him for doubling down and selling it, and especially in that, quote unquote mainstream sports environment.
And this is just to go a little behind the curtain. We have it on good authority that one of the producers of the segment on the draft is a wrestling fan, and when he saw Tony come in, he's like, holy shit, we have to get him on camera. He has to be on camera with that neck brace. And they did. Yeah. God bless them all.
And I saw a clip from the Rich Eisen show later on, a couple hours later, where one of his co-hosts, who's clearly a wrestling fan, he was wearing a Sting shirt, and he was explaining to Rich Eisen and all the other co-hosts what happened on Dynamite on Monday. And they put it over hugely. Rich Eisen said, I'm kind of concerned for Tony sitting there. Like, is he okay? Is he going to be okay?
Yeah. And I'm only going to hit this once. I don't want to end on a down note. I was very frustrated with Tony's comments about WWE during that segment because I think it took away from all the good stuff that they've been doing lately. You can say CM Punk took away from the other stuff. You can blame him all you want, but his comments, not good. So you just got to think a little bit more. You just got to think a little bit more when you're in the public and you're representing a company and a lot of people. And I think that this nonsense of constantly bringing up hatred for WWE when they don't give a shit about you. They just don't. They're bigger. They're number one by a country mile. Just stop talking about them.
And they're just a
you're not
complete
competition.
business. They're a
Yeah.
multi-billion-dollar
They're
media
Disney.
company.
Leave them
Right.
alone.
Yeah.
'Cause they
Yeah,
don't
I
give a
completely
shit about you.
agree. I completely agree.
It
It
was a
was a
deadline.
very stupid thing to say. But that doesn't mean the
It
company is
never
folding overnight. They'll be
right.
fine.
Yeah, but
I just want to watch wrestling, man. I just
Yeah.
I just
I
want to
agree.
watch wrestling.
yeah,
I agree. It's just when I see stuff like that, I'm like, oh, come on, you just did all this good stuff. Like,
and
I'm
that's
trying to enjoy all the good stuff.
you're coming off some really stuff that's generated a lot of buzz and cover your ears, Deb. And here's old Tony Khan jumping on the Twitter machine, unzipping his fly, rolling out and stepping all over his dick. It's like, dude, every time you do this, it's like somebody has to work for Tony Khan. That every time he picks up his phone, they do the Batman, slap it out of his hand. Just no.
He needs, you know what he needs? Remember in Key and Peele when with the angry Obama skit?
Yes.
That's what he needs.
Yes.
He needs the anger translator to be like, yeah. That's what he needs.
All right, let's end on a good note. Tonight you've got 3 hours of AEW, right?
Right.
A lot of good stuff happening.
Basketball.
Stupid basketball.
People do like basketball. Not me, but people do like
to the point, I think that Dave made the point, like, they're have quite the lead in tonight.
Yeah.
Like, you want to get a lot of people watching your show. That's the show you want to lead in. You want to lead in from a championship.
Dare I say my playoff basketball is playoffs. Playoff basketball is a better, way better lead in than say the big rerun of the Big Bang Theory.
I don't know. Big Bang gets the viewers though.
You're absolutely right. They have it on like literally 23 and a half hours a day, except for wrestling. But I'm just saying.
I think it's going to be a bigger number tonight than last week.
Okay. I hope so.
I hope so.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. All right, folks. I think that's everything. Hope everybody had fun. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Deb, where can people find you on the socials?
At That's So Debonair on the Twitter machine and the Instagram, and you know the Joe. Click the link.
The link. You have to click the link.
John?
You can find me here, there, everywhere, but mainly, as it says on the screen, at Twisted Metal Fab on the Instagram and the Twitter, or X as you kids call it these days. And of course, follow the exploits of the most dangerous weapon in professional wrestling. Of course, I am talking about the AK9K, the Ass Kicker 9K on Instagram at Ass Kicker 9K. Also, hashtag, thanks, Deb, Nation's Corner on location. When you're out at the shows, whoever you're seeing, wherever you're seeing, whenever you're seeing, make sure you include pictures and hashtag them, Nation's Corner on location. We know we love women's wrestling. We are huge supporters of women's wrestling and indie wrestling. And we want to know who you're seeing, who you're liking. And looking to be a fairly busy month coming up for Nation's Corner on location in this post-Mania hangover time. But a lot of the local companies and stuff in the area are cranking back up again with their regular slate of great shows. So you're going to see me out and about. And if you do, absolutely come up and say hello, regardless of what my co-hosts say. I am somewhat friendly. So, but, again, hashtag Nation's Corner on location.
Nice. And I'm PW Front Row on all the socials. Make sure you follow us at Nation's Corner on X and The Nation's Corner on all other social media platforms. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Y'all have a good week and have fun. Later.